Welcome to the Tracking Connections podcast, and thanks for listening.
We feature voices from around the world sharing stories of working intentionally with deep nature connection in ways that transform lives, families, projects, and communities. I'm Sarah.
I'm Aidan.
And I'm John.
And we are your hosts from Living Connection First.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first episode, podcast number 1 for Tracking Connections. This is John Young. And I'm here today with my son, Aidan, who will be hosting or co-hosting future episodes, and also my partner, Sarah, who will probably be doing the same. So it's nice to have you both here. Maybe you can say hello quick, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Nice to hear you here.
And Aidan.
Yeah, hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm excited to get this going.
Yeah, me too. This is really fun. I would say like somewhere around 2 years ago, I had this really strong inner vision drive to do something with a podcast. I think we're supposed to have a podcast. I don't know why. I tried a lot of different ideas, but then I kind of let it go after obsessing. And it just emerged quite organically very recently. And it seemed like numerous people were saying the same thing to us at the same time. And so it feels good to start here. And I wanted to start, with a very origins kind of story, just, way back. I'm not going to go too far back. I won't go back to the beginning of time or anything. I'll just go back to something that I noticed that began to drive me when I was about 18 years old. So that would have been 1978. And I was working with my mentor, Tom Brown Jr., who I met at the age of 10. And he mentored me in a very particular way, which, of course, I now do the same. And a lot of people have learned to do this, from Tom or myself over the years. And it's been a helpful influence. Let's just say that. And it's done some good in the world. When I look back over the last 40 years of my life, I can see the tracks of this mentoring lineage, and I really appreciate it. And I know a lot of people do. But there's something when I first noticed this, and I thought it was important to mention. So when I was 18, I had friends that were close friends that had grown up with me in my neighborhood, who were also mentored by Tom, though not to the same extent as I was. We went camping with Tom a lot in the Pine Barrens. He would take me, and he would take me and Mark, my friend Mark, but then he decided to take over a Boy Scout troop, and he had a handful of young people that he was working with through those years. And I noticed that when we were around 17, 18 years old, and Tom had gone off to write his first book and to open his school, and so we kind of hadn't seen him for a while, but that would sort of leave a bunch of us to sit around the fire, literally, and reminisce. And also to just sort of express ourselves. And we felt really safe to just be ourselves with each other. We'd been through a lot of really cool experiences together. And every one of these young men at this point had a similar ethic, a similar set of values, and it was clearly different from the other peers that were 17, 18 that went to high school with us, who didn't have Tom in their life. And we began to muse out loud, as we started to see the forest lands and meadows that we grew up in, where we had built forts and where we had sat for fires and made camps and spent many a night as teens, just catching tree frogs and fishing and things like that, swimming in the swimming holes. And these places were very special to us, but they were private property, and none of us knew that they were on the chopping block to turn into subdivisions. Like, none of us knew that. It was just something that didn't even enter your mind. And when that started to happen, when that change began and the bulldozers started, first with my sit spot, and that was really rough. And then next thing you know, what we called the strawberry fields and the locust grove and all of that just turned into this massive subdivision, and there was all this earthworks, and we didn't even recognize it anymore. Every one of those fellas expressed deep, heartbroken sentiments. They were really sad about it. And they were sad and or angry about the seeming carelessness of the way people were treating the earth. They were upset about pollution. They were upset that no one cared. They were, and we shared that sentiment. But it was super notable in my senior year that the kids that I liked, that were my friends, who were not raised by Tom, did not express those sentiments at all. In fact, thought we were being stupid for having them. Like that was the response. And I started to ask this question really right then, 17, 18, what is different about us and why are we different? What happened in those years with Tom that made us care about the earth, deeply care about it? No one was telling us to care about it. Tom didn't try to pass his values on to us. It emerged from each of us naturally. And I remember thinking to myself when I was getting ready to do my research at university at the age of 19, what do I want to do and why? The why was because I'm really worried about this earth. I'm worried about the people of this earth. I want to do for others what was done for me, such that they find that internal, intrinsic caring, so that they will take better care of the earth, take better care of each other, take better care of themselves. I mean, so the ultimate why for me was whatever secret sauce Tom used on us. This is the what. Whatever secret sauce he used on us, I want to understand it. I want to study it. Like, I want to just geek out on it. Like I want to throw myself fully into it to try to understand what did he do? And can I lift it out and make it universal and available? And in 1983, I graduated college and set forth with a firm commitment, which happens to be the year that Aidan was born. And so Aidan is one of the people in the world, and there's not many, I don't think there's really more than one, who I can say was born into this essentially culture patch. Like we literally didn't have a culture to lean on. We had family culture, but we didn't have like all of the parts and pieces that would be needed to generate maximum connection, right? So we literally were patching in universal cultural principles that would enhance connection between people and people, people and themselves, people and the earth. And we discovered over time that that was a positive feedback loop. If you only connect to yourself, it doesn't enhance your connection to people or nature. If you only connect to nature, it definitely doesn't enhance your connection to people. We proved that over and over again. But if you connect to all three, they feed on each other, and there's a positive feedback loop that makes all three of them much more powerful. And so the journey picks up speed, so to speak. So I guess you could say I had a case study at 17, and it was me and my friends. And then I began to research. And then when I got out of college, I said, okay, I'm going to take all the stuff that I've gathered, and I had a binder with pages and pages and pages of stuff, all organized by Roman numerals. I started working with high school children at a local high school that asked me to come do some work for a retreat program. That got going. I had a handful of them, and then we got written up in a newspaper. So this homeschooling group insisted that I do things for children they were basically infants to about the age of 12. And Aidan was basically born into that community. So Ingwe caught word of what I was doing. I met him. He was told about me by a community member who also told me about Ingwe. But finally, Ingwe came and visited me, and I met him, showed him what I was doing. And, that's another story for another day. It took a little while for him to really put both feet in. But once he did, the first thing he said to me was, let me look at this research of yours. He said, bring Aidan. Aidan was in a car seat. Bring Aidan. We'll drive him around until he falls asleep, and then we'll go park in one of these lovely parks, and we'll put the car seat on the picnic table, and you and I will sit here and look at your binder. And that was the first official meeting of Ingwe and I collaborating on what has become, the 512 map, what has become the H shields and what became the naturalist training and the tracking our roots in nature, all of that came from these earliest meetings. And the the thing that was very interesting to me was that Ingwe says, John, look what you've done. You've taken these beautiful sacred things. These are the things the Bushmen did with me. These are just the same as what the Akamba did with me. These are the things that Tom Brown did with you. These are beautiful and sacred things. And you've organized them using Roman numerals. Don't you realize the Romans are the ones who got us into this mess in the first place? And actually, at the time, strangely, I didn't know what he was talking about. I did not know what he was talking about. But that began this journey. And, I have to say, way back then, we struggled. I mean, local people in New Jersey didn't necessarily want what we believed in. They did not see the value of it. They didn't understand, who cares? Like, why would you do that? Like, literally, my mother's best friend, who was kind of an aunt to me, right? Like, what are you doing with your life, Jonathan? And I'd tell her, and she'd shake her head and look at me like she was pitying me, like, she was grieving for me. And she would say, why would anyone do that? Jonathan, you're such a smart boy. Your mother's so worried about you. You should make something of yourself, and here I was like, wait, this is what I believe in. This is what I really, truly believe in. And, I would just like to offer that, is kind of where this all started, right? And Ingwe had said something that I'm going to ask Aidan to read in a moment here. And I think he said it, well, you can tell us the date, but it was long before his passing. And he called it a battle not in vain. And every time I hear this, my hair stands up and I choke up because I remember the early years and what a struggle it was. You got that, Aidan?
I've got it. And I'm not going to try to do the Ingwe impression, but you can imagine it if you know it. A battle not in vain. This is from November 6th, 2002, 20 years into Wilderness Awareness School. John Young had a dream of starting a wilderness school dedicated to caring for the earth and our children by fostering understanding and appreciation of nature. He shared this dream with me, but we faced many challenges in trying to accomplish what we so strongly believed in, and at times it appeared to be almost a losing battle. However, that dream has now come true, reaching far across the land and bringing knowledge and a better life for many people of all ages. Our battle was not in vain, for which I give thanks.
Yeah, every time I hear that, I can hear his voice. You don't even have to imitate him, but I hear him echoing from the ancestor realm. I just get choked up. Because, yeah, really, you have no idea. And I won't tell a sob story about the first whatever years it was. I don't think things really started to get rolling till about 1995, 96. We struggled for a long time. However, that said, we built such a really strong community around this work in New Jersey. Aidan grew up with multiple cousins, who were from aunties and uncles who are not blood related. And he grew up in this beautiful community based on village building principles that we teach in the Eight Shields model. He was surrounded by love and all kinds of peers, and there was lots of, organic, quote unquote, free play, which was actually coyote teaching a la Tom Brown that really connected the kids deep to nature. It wasn't just appreciation, as Ingwe mentioned it. It was also connection, which we came to understand later. That after Ingwe passed, there was all this research that came out about this thing called nature connection, right? And so this has been a model in iterations since day one. And we were asked starting in 1992, adults began to ask, please tell us what you're doing with your children because you're working miracles. We want to know what you're doing. And then in 1995, I taught the first art of mentoring to take adults on the journey so they would understand what I was doing with the children because I couldn't get them to learn it in their head. I had to get them to learn it in their body. That's what seems to be true. And this became, the art of mentoring was the place where I was teaching the Eight Shields principles. And then that just took a life of its own. And next thing you know, we were teaching it all over the US, and then we were teaching it in Canada, and then we were invited to German-speaking countries, and we taught it there. We taught it in the UK, and then South Africa and Australia. And then from there, it went to many other places around the world. And that's, that's where it is today. And that brings us to, where we want to go, A, with our work, but B, with this podcast, right? Sarah's been talking about, like, hey, we have to help lift the voices, because the more I hear from people who've been doing this 10, 15, 20 years, and they start telling me the stories, the more I know Ingwe is like smiling in the ancestor realm, because what we saw in 1983 was unimaginable. And in 2024, we now know we've touched hundreds of thousands of children we've never even met. And that we've, and I'm not saying we, it's kind of like these patterns are just universal ancient patterns. And I'd love, Sarah, if you could reflect a little bit on what you're seeing about lifting up voices, and what we want to do.
Hmm. Yeah, well, just acknowledging how many people have embraced these teachings over the last decades, and wanting really to hear what have they done, so that we can really honor the work that people are doing, and learn from each other, and create connections where people may not know about what someone's doing in Germany, and maybe they're a neighbor and they could really use that program. So I see it as about connection, and spreading the word, and really honoring and acknowledging what people are doing, and again learning from each other. There's lots of ways that these principles have been applied and can be applied. So hearing what the magic is that's possible, just that magic of inspiration, to spark ideas and help people see, what is possible when we really align ourselves with nature. And then, it's also that piece of aligning with more people, right, around nature connection, because there are many communities all around the world that have been working with nature, with these principles in other ways, and the power of actually coming together and hearing each other. Whether or not we ever meet those people, there's something really powerful in knowing that other people are on the same path, working toward the same truth and for the future generations.
Yeah, very well said. I one of my favorite shows to listen to, podcast by Guy Raz called How I Built This, and because I'm still, I started building this, so to speak, in 1983, right? But I'm still building it. And I love hearing stories from other people who have had crazy ideas. They almost all have the same story. I had this crazy idea. I saw an avenue where it might get traction, and I did this. And, the whole story is about going down the adaptive valley, going through all kinds of hardship and coming out the other side and rising. But I every time I hear a story like that, I get doubly inspired to do my thing, and that's what we hope, that by raising these voices, we can together inspire each other, and give each other role models, and see, there isn't one right way to do this, and the principles that we'll share don't just apply to nature connection, and you'll hear that in a lot of people's stories. We have some great guests lined up, and we're really excited, because I've been inspired by one particular story recently when I asked my friend Arnaud, who's been on this journey for a long time. He got that really long journey naturalist certificate behind him. He graduated that. He went deep into the holistic tracking thing, and he's been a teacher, a mentor. He kind of started out as a snowboard instructor, so outdoor adventure guy, but he's really taken this to heart, and he was going to go on a personal quest. And he was surrounded by all these people, but one of the people at this quest was a person from a traditional culture from the region he was in Canada, there in Northwest Canada, I should say Southwest Canada. And this person kept saying to Arnaud, as they were discussing what they were doing, he kept saying, in my culture, this is what we do. in my culture, this is what we do. And Arno kept saying, wait, I don't have a culture. He keeps saying that. And I feel like I have no culture. He said, but wait, no, I do. I learned all this stuff from Art Mentoring and from my naturalist training and my tracker training. And I do have a culture, and he suddenly realized, that, yeah, he could use this to help his family, to help his community, so in a way, something that a wonderful person from the network said, Joel Dubois from Sacramento, he said one day to me back in around 2008, oh, what you're doing is culture repair. And I said, culture repair, that's a really interesting way to talk about it. He says, yeah, but that's what you're doing. A lot of us come from an impoverished background. We don't have a culture to point to. And what you gather and what you put together, it actually allows us to generate a culture from principles, real time. And that's making a huge difference for me and my wife and my children, and I think that is part of what we're talking about. It is partially culture repair. And just recognizing, as my other friend, Dr. Bill Sutherland says, let's recognize that we start off from an impoverished place. We can't point at all the aunties and uncles and, all the elders around us and all these great traditions and all these great teachings. Like, we can't point at that. So let's acknowledge we're starting from an impoverished place, and then we'll come at it with open eyes, and we'll be looking creatively for solutions, and ways to move forward in a collaborative way. So, that's the spirit with which we reach out to you through this. And again, just to recognize, our second episode will be with my son Aidan, because I really want you to get to know him, because he very, very well may be the person who's interviewing with you. But it would be good to hear a little of his story and the inspiring way with which he's using, for instance, the Eight Shields principles outside of nature, right? And so look forward to some fun shares, some probably pretty moving stories, and a lot of good storytelling, on this channel. And yeah, please make sure you're on our list so you stay in touch, and you can share it with friends and family. And we're basically hosted at the Living Connection First site, so you'll find us at livingconnectionfirst.net. Just look for Tracking Connections if you want to share. And with that, I'll just give Aidan a chance to sign off, and you can pass it to Sarah, and I'll just say thank you all.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing this and getting things kicked off. And I am very excited about seeing where this goes, and just want to second what you have both said here about just being really excited to find out all of your stories, all of you that are out there doing this work in the world, so that we can be inspired from each other, we can learn from each other, and who knows, maybe collaborate and build new things out there that are bigger and better and growing all the time. So I'm super, super stoked to be part of this. Sarah?
Yeah, likewise. And yeah, I feel like this podcast these conversations are an opportunity to really see how have these universal principles been effective and been used in order to inform us moving forward, what is possible, acknowledging like how much impact they've already had, and then what's possible, what more can we move forward towards. So yeah, it's exciting, inspiring for me.
Yeah, well, I thank you both for being such a good audience for me. It's weird to speak into emptiness, but to have the two of you here now live is really helpful to me as well. So thanks, everyone, and big gratitude for the people that carried this knowledge through time, that finds its way to us, and a nod and a greeting to the future generations. And let's hope that, these things can grow.
Thanks for listening to Tracking Connections. You can find everything related to the podcast and our current offerings at trackingconnections.net. We'll see you next time.